Hello, I'm Faye Waterman, and this is Talking All Things Business. And my guest today is Jacqui Brauman. And Jacqui is a solicitor, and she has a business called TBA Law, which she's had for 8 years, and also created a business called Legally Wise Women. But today's topic that we're going to talk about is costs and managing legal engagement. Thank you for your time, Jacqui, and please share what it is that happens when you engage a lawyer, a solicitor, a barrister, or the legal profession.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks, Faye. Fees are often something that people are quite worried about when it comes to the legal industry, because a lot of people have heard horror stories about how much things cost. And so it's sort of cemented in people's brains that a lawyer is going to cost them a lot. Relative to the cost of other things, to be fair, a lot of legal fees are actually lower or on par now. So I think some of this fear is a throwback from the 80s and 90s, because when you think about, doing renovations or getting other trades in, they're certainly sort of pretty pricey. However,
and the fees can change at any time, can't they?
That's
just
right.
like in any profession.
Absolutely. That's right.
Yes.
And so when you engage a solicitor, they have to give you a range of what the legal fees are going to be. And each time the scope changes, they have to rechange their cost agreement with you. So just like when you go to a mechanic, you get a price, and if something changes during the day when they're servicing it, they have to call you and tell you this is what's different and this is what the cost is going to have to be. A lawyer also has to tell you when the scope changes, what the change is going to cost.
Do you have to sit down when they tell you what the cost is? Because sometimes it depends on the legal issue as to how long it takes. It can be short and sharp and not expensive, or it can be a long, drawn-out thing that could cost an arm and a leg in some cases, depending.
Correct. Yeah. And there's a lot of factors going into how it could be made more costly, if it's drawn out and the other party, just keeps it going. And then you feel like you're not in control and your fees are being incurred despite everything that you do. But there are ways of managing that engagement with the lawyer to keep your fees lower. But let's talk also about how lawyers charge, so that when you actually, before you even engage someone, you have an idea about what sort of charging you're going for, because lawyers do charge differently. And if you want to make sure that you have a fixed fee, you need to find a lawyer who does fixed fee, because not every lawyer does. Or if you are in a category where there could be no win, no fee, then you need to find someone who does that, because not every lawyer does.
And that's the whole thing, isn't it? It's in that search, but sometimes it's really difficult when you're in a situation where you're stressed and you're emotional and you can't think, and you might employ someone who is not appropriate for you. How would you deal with that?
Yeah, that's tricky. You can have the conversation with them again by saying, okay, we're now a couple of months into this. This is how I need to communicate, or how I want to communicate with you, and this is what I need from you. It might be I just need to hear from you once a week to hear if there has been anything, because quite often we will tell someone, you won't hear from us unless there is something that has happened and we need to get in touch. But then someone's left sitting there in the dark. So you may just want to hear from them once a week, even if it's to say nothing's happened. Or you may also need the discussion, look, you're not clear enough about your fees. I need to be billed monthly, so I stay on top of this. You can ask for that too. You can ask for itemized invoices so that you can actually check what they're doing. If you feel like they're billing you for things that shouldn't cost much, you can have that discussion with them. And ultimately, if you're not liking how it is, you need to find someone else and have the file transferred.
And you can do that? You can do that?
Yeah, you can. You need to pay your fees up to date to get the whole thing transferred. But the other thing is, you may not need the whole file transferred anyway, because if the lawyer is sending you copies of everything, you should be keeping your own file. You should have everything pretty much. So, and then you can have an argument about fees if you need to with the Legal Services Board. So that is who lawyers are registered with. There is a complaints body with the Legal Services Board, and they can help you sort that out. Or VCAT also has jurisdiction over legal fees as well. So there are ways of changing lawyers, of having a dispute about fees, but have the conversation as well. I think that that's really important.
You just took the words right out of my mouth. I said it is really important that you do have that conversation so that you understand, and the lawyer or the person that you're working with understands where you're coming from as well. And that communication has to be left open, doesn't it? So that you can speak freely and feel comfortable. And if you think you're being charged unfairly, you can have that conversation without any lashbacks from the firm or whomever you're working with at the time. Yeah. So when you say no win, no fee, what does that actually mean?
So there are certain types of legal matters where, like a TAC claim or a negligence claim, where you know that the person you are going after has insurance. So you know that there's going to be a payout. And the lawyers who do no win, no fee won't take it on unless they're pretty certain that there's going to be a payout. And then they say, all right, we're pretty certain, so we'll take it on. If we don't get anything, we won't get paid because they've taken the risk. But if we do get paid, we're going to take this percentage of your payout. And often it's a fairly high percentage.
Would it be, 40%, 50%? It wouldn't be half, would it?
No, quite often wouldn't be half. But yeah, between 30 and 40% would be the higher sort of end of what that could be.
Right. Okay. So you really need to understand what you're getting yourself into, no win, no fee. Then you've got the hourly rate where lawyers, the legal system works on an hourly rate. In some cases, if it's short and sharp, that's fine. But in other cases, if it's a long-term thing, wouldn't you go to a fixed term fee, something like that? Because you can see that some things might go for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, or linger on. So an hourly fee would be astronomical.
Could be. Yeah, it just depends on, I suppose, what's being done. Because if something's sitting there without anything happening for 18 months, then again, fixed fee or hourly rate would be very similar. Most people are very familiar with hourly rate because it's easy to think about. So I'm employing someone for their skill and for them to do things for me, and whatever time it takes, I'm going to be charged on that basis. And the hourly rate of a lawyer, quite often you'll feel like it's high, but that's not what the lawyer gets paid. It pays all the overheads and all the other staff that are helping out and all those things as well. It's not unusual for a lawyer in the city to be, $500 to $700 an hour, but
even higher.
Yes, but the more average is sort of around the $300 or $400 mark. Some of the problems with fixed fee billing, and some clients like it because they can easily see how long things are taking and it relates back to a cost. It is a fairly clear way of doing it, unless the person who is working for you is inefficient, because hourly billing does reward inefficiency. It does reward someone taking longer. If someone is really good and quick at what they do, they obviously bill less for the same work. And that is sort of why a more senior lawyer has a higher rate, because they can do things probably in half the time of a solicitor that charges $200, who would take 2 hours to do the same amount of work that someone charging $400 takes half an hour. And so you would end up with a smaller bill with the higher paying solicitor anyway. Fixed fee, though, in a way, is worked out by the lawyer working out how much they think it's going to take. So it still comes back a little bit to time, but also value. So a lawyer's got enough experience to go, okay, well, it's going to take me about $2,000 to negotiate this and settle terms on this particular matter, because I know that it's going to take sort of this long. And then underlying that, the lawyer might still be time billing to see whether their fixed fee quote was on par or not. And if things aren't going well because it's not, the other person is not engaging, that is when the fixed fee lawyer might go, well, actually, these things have arisen, which were not what I thought was going to happen. So we've now got to that $2,000 mark and we haven't got terms. So here's a new scope because we couldn't get to where we got to. So
as long as that's clearly explained as it progresses, then that's okay. And the client understands that.
Yeah. It's
when that isn't clearly explained that things can get a bit distorted there.
Yeah.
It's like when you're charged for things, I've heard you get charged for every email that is sent. So, each time they read an email, you get charged X amount of time, you get charged for phone calls and all these sorts of things. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is on a time billing basis. I have heard as well in the industry that, even when a solicitor is doing something else and they're not at work and they're thinking about it and solving it in their head, sometimes that is time billed as well, which is potentially, some of the issues with time billing in the legal industry, because, if someone's mowing the lawns and they're thinking about your matter and they think and they solve it in a particular way and they go, okay, this is the direction we need to take, some firms will time bill for that thought time. In my view, should be built into the hourly rate, because you are paying for the brain and the experience of someone to be doing things for you, and that should go hand in hand in what the rate is.
Yes.
So, yes, that is a problem with hourly billing and the industry in general. But there are administrative tasks that are not allowed to be time billed. And if someone is really concerned and they get the itemized bill and there's things on it like being time billed for photocopying, you shouldn't pay for someone to be standing at a photocopier. It should be built into the hourly rate. So things like that. There are also services that review lawyers' bills. So there are costing services that specifically review bills and tell you what's reasonable and what's not. So you can also look at a service like that.
So you have a fallback all the time if you're uncertain about the billing that you've received or that you're being charged throughout that time. So is it better to pay the hourly rate, the fixed rate, pay at the end of the legal issue, once everything's signed, sealed and delivered? Or what's the best way? Is there a best way, or does it differ from service to service and firm to firm?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, there is a lot of variance. It comes down to engaging a lawyer to begin with and engaging someone that you're comfortable to work within a framework that you're comfortable with. So some people, as I said, prefer to be hourly billed. Sometimes particularly businesses prefer that, because, if other services also work on an hourly rate, they understand it and it's clear for them. If you want to be billed monthly, you need to ask for that to happen. If you want to be billed at certain stages or, flag marked points in a matter, for example, like a family law matter, you might want to be billed after each hearing, for example. You can ask for that too. Or if you at the start have an arrangement with the lawyer to say, I can't really pay you anything up front, and the lawyer agrees, you can have a pay at the end arrangement. And that can be whether you're time billed or whether it's fixed fee. You shouldn't be charged more just because you're paying at the end. And quite often that happens. It happens for a lot of matters that I do, because if I'm doing deceased estate work, I've got to wait until there's actually money to pay me. Or if it's a family law proceeding, there's not money until a house is sold, for example. So those are situations where you might have those discussions with a lawyer and actually ask for that. Many lawyers do ask for a retainer up front. That is quite often because lawyers have been burnt by too many clients before. And if there's not going to be money at the end, they want to make sure that they are covered. So that's quite often something that will be asked for as well. Put a couple of $1,000s into trust upfront person. So having a support person at that point, whether it's someone that you can actually rely on to sort of help you make that initial decision, but it's also vet 2 or 3 lawyers and make a decision between them. Don't just go with the first person, because you need to weigh up not only costs, but how the person communicates, their experience, all those other aspects as well, to choose the right person.
Yeah. Look, great information, Jacqui, and thank you so much for that. We'll be back next time to talk about another topic so that people can understand what to do in the legal system. And Legally Wise Women is there for women to be supported through those times when they're not sure about how to go about finding the legal services that they need. So a trusty place to go is Legally Wise Women.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time, Jacqui, and we'll be back again.
Thank you.
I'm Faye Waterman, and this is Talking All Things Business. We'll be back with Jacqui with another topic.